big story and the big interview of the show today, which is Allan Lichtman, who is a presidential prophet, who's known to correctly and accurately predict many presidential elections in the United States in the past, and he is joining me to talk to us about what does he feel about the elections, who has a better chance, what are the criteria by which he has come to that and finalized that decision and taken that call as to who really has a lead and an edge right now. All right, Allan Lichtman joins me live on the broadcast. Appreciate you taking out the time, sir, to speak to NDTV World. My first question to you, sir, you've been closely monitoring and following many U.S. elections in the past. What's your reading of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in 2024?
Well, there are all kinds of anomalies in this election. A major party candidate, Donald Trump, a convicted felon, 34 felony counts, facing indictments in 3 other venues. And on the other side, an unprecedented withdrawal of a sitting president from the race right before the Democratic convention. But the keys are the North Star of prediction. They remain constant despite the fluctuating events of the campaign because they tap into the structure of how American presidential elections really work as votes up or down on the strength and performance of the White House party. And that's what the keys gauge. And the way it works, if 6 or more keys, any keys, go against the White House party, they are predicted losers. Otherwise, they are predicted winners. It was this system that enabled me against all the pundits, the pollsters, and other modelers to predict Donald Trump's win in 2016. And what we have this time is the most keys that could fall against the White House party based on my system is 4 to 5, 5 as a maximum. That still leaves them as predicted winners because it takes 6 keys or more to count them out.
So how many keys are there? For the benefit of our viewers, how many keys or how many parameters do you really have on which you decide?
It doesn't quite work that way. It works how many keys count against the White House party, and it takes 6 to count them out. So they've lost the mandate key, which is based upon losses in U.S. House elections. They obviously lost the incumbency key with Biden not running, but with the party uniting around Harris, they avoided the loss of the contest key. Finally, the third key that they lost is the incumbent charisma key, because Harris, whatever you may think of her, is not a once-in-a-generation, broadly inspirational candidate like Franklin Roosevelt or Ronald Reagan. So that's 3 keys down. Remember, it takes 6 keys to count them out. And the only other 2 keys that are shaky are the 2 foreign policy keys, because the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine are so fluid. I think those keys will split and Harris will be down 4 keys, 2 keys short of defeat. But even if they both flip negative, that means Harris is down only 5 keys, still 1 key short of defeat. All the other keys are locked in her favor.
Okay, so between now and the actual election, what according to you are those areas where there could be some lack of clarity or uncertainty?
The only 2 areas where I see uncertainty, as I mentioned, are the 2 foreign policy keys: foreign military success, foreign military failure, because of the vicissitudes of war. You know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in Ukraine and the Middle East. Could there be a ceasefire and a hostage release? Could the Ukrainians stave off the Russians in the Donbass region and make further incursions into Russia? But my point is, no matter what happens with those 2 keys, there's not enough keys to predict that Donald Trump could regain the White House. For a while, I thought third-party key might be shaky, but the RFK Jr. campaign has fizzled. He suspended his campaign. For a while, I thought the social unrest key might be shaky, but demonstrations at the Democratic convention turned out to be underwhelming, and the campuses have been very quiet. Nothing approaching the massive sustained social unrest that calls into question the stability of the country. That's what it would take to turn that key.
What about the economy keys? There's the short-term economy, the long-term economy, an area that the Republicans have been really focused on and making it a cornerstone of their campaign.
Yeah, the point of the keys is we don't pay attention to the campaigns. Based on the campaigns, Hillary Clinton should have won overwhelmingly in 2016. She won every debate. She had a better ground game. She was more experienced. She raised more money. She had more ads. My two economic keys are statistical. They're very specifically defined. The short-term economy key says there's no recession in the election year, and the National Bureau of Economic Research that tracks those things has not called a recession. You can't have a recession in just a couple of months. It takes much longer than that for a recession to take hold. So that key is solid. The long-term economy key is also statistical. It asks whether the real per capita growth during the current term is at least equal to that of the average of the previous two terms, and per capita growth under Biden is double or more that of the average of the previous two terms. I don't take into account these fluctuating polls or what the campaigns are doing.
And this is exactly what I was going to ask, that while speaking to you, it looks like almost a certainty that Kamala Harris is coming she's winning this election, but some of the polls seem to suggest that it's pretty much neck and neck between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
That's the beauty of the keys. They're not poll dependent. Look how the polls misled the poll dependent predictors in 2016. The most eminent among them, the Princeton University Consortium of professors, headed by the great Professor Sam Wang, gave Clinton, based on the polls, a 99% chance of being the next president. And Professor Wang said, if I'm wrong, I'll eat a bug on national television. And to his credit, he did. Then you have this clerk, Nate Silver, who just compiles polls and believe he's a great prophet. And he had Hillary Clinton overwhelmingly likely to win. And then when she loses, he said, see, I told you there was a 20, 25, 30% chance that she would lose. So it's meaningless. He can never be right and he can never be wrong. The keys stand above all of that. They called George H.W. Bush's election in 1988 when he was 17 points down in the polls to Michael Dukakis in June and July of the election year, and every pundit and pollster had written him off.
Indeed, and I think that's the beauty of having a very scientific modeling approach as against random surveys of people. So yes, there's a scientific approach, but I want to come to the fact that, sir, you made, which was about that foreign policy and aspects related to the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the war that's taking place in Gaza could be the factors that could be undecided right now. To explain to us what could be the impact that they may have in changing, if at all, your prediction?
No matter what happens with two foreign policy keys, success and failure, it will not change the prediction. As I said, right now I see the keys as split, which would be 4 keys. But even if they both flip, things go really sour in both of those wars, that would only be 2 more negative keys on top of the 3 she now holds. That's still only 5 keys, not enough to predict her defeat. So while things could change in wars, they always can, they will not affect my prediction that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States.
The Democrat camp would be delighted to hear this prediction, especially because you've got so many in the past absolutely right. But in the spirit of fairness, if the Republican campaign is listening to this, so what, according to you, could they do, because there's still 2 months left, to at least come close to any of what you're saying, sir?
There's really nothing they can do. That's the whole point of the keys. It's fundamentally different from all of the conventional wisdom. about elections. All the wisdom that the media spends hundreds of millions of dollars covering the campaign every day, as though it was a horse race with candidates sprinting ahead and falling behind. The big message of the Keys is it's governance, not campaigning, that counts. And you're looking at the governance of the White House party on things like the economy, foreign policy, social unrest, policy change, scandal, not the events of the campaign. And that's what makes it different from all the conventional wisdom in predicting elections. I'm not fluctuating my predictions based on the day-to-day events of the campaign. You cannot, and no one has ever been able to successfully predict an election outcome by looking at the campaign. Impossible.
All right, Mr. Allan Lichtman, appreciate you joining us to decode the election and taking out the time and speaking to us. So there you have it. The word coming in terms of a prediction is that it is Kamala Harris that who could be the next president of United States. So 2 months left for the election, but that's the big word coming in from what many would say election guru, who's been able to predict so many presidential elections in the past.